Great. So welcome everyone to the July 28th, 2021 GitOps Working Group Principles meeting, weekly. Um, it may not continue to be weekly, depending on how far along we move, and it looks pretty good. I'm going to paste in the direct link to this week's meeting in the meetings doc. And if anyone wants to add agenda items, I put 2 on there because those were things we said we were going to talk about. But also, if anything's more pressing, we can bump those up in the agenda. It doesn't have to be a first come first serve in that way. But also, Florian, right before we started recording, you had asked a question about could we discuss, as part of the principles, the concepts of pause and resume in the context of reconciliation. Did I get that right?
That was just about why you named this break class. This was not clear to me, or is not.
Got you. I'm going to put that on the agenda.
So the glossary explains what it is, or will explain what it is, but not why it's named that way. But this is completely off topic.
So a break glass comes from like a fire alarm. So in a lot of old buildings, they used to have a key that was behind glass, and it says, "In case of emergency, break the glass to get the exit, the key for the exit door."
Okay, got it.
That's where break glass comes from.
Okay, thank you.
For accessibility's sake, it might be worth pointing out that English idioms are fun, but not necessarily the most accessible.
Well, I don't know if this is an English idiom. It's an actual physical device. It may not be that the physical device is present globally, but I'm sure there's translations of it in other languages.
Well, actually, in Norwegian, it is break glass, just directly translated. But obviously, if you don't have a reference in English, that might be lost. But yeah.
Okay, cool. I put that on the agenda. So we already started discussing it, but that's thanks Mosh. Okay, Christian, you have your.
Yeah, because I want in the same vein of breaking glass, right? We should I wonder if we should talk about avoiding terms like that, even if it's mostly generic, right? Like it's like Moshi knew what it. I mean, if you speak English, you know what that means. Robert even said like in Norwegian that makes sense. But should we like start? Now this may be a topic for another time, or maybe like a thing to do. We should maybe start trimming some of those things. If we decide to, right, like trimming some of those phrases. I don't think we have a lot of those phrases. I think we purposely avoided using some of the phrases. Scott, I know offline we talked about like I try to avoid using the word via, right, via, just for that reason, right? Like because it makes sense to a lot of people, but maybe not everyone. So that might be something to consider in the future. So
I would actually like to say that we should. I'm making an issue right now in GitHub. Let me share my screen real fast. Ensure documents language is accessible, right?
Good enough for me.
Flesh out specifics. We just probably need a to-do list. Maybe I'll say, ask someone to help review from this point of view.
I do think there's kind of a neat irony in saying ensure documents language is accessible and start out with flesh out.
Touche.
That's right.
Yes.
Iron out. No. Just
Exactly.
It's accessibility is hard.
Flesh out directly translated Norwegian means nothing, by the way. So yeah.
It's an idiom that doesn't make much sense in English either. It gets confused with flush out all the time, but they're two separate phrases, which I won't bore y'all with, but
That's right. This needs to be further elaborated. This needs to be further detailed out. Tasks need to be further detailed. Whatever. There we go. Okay, so cool. This is great. Thank you. That's awesome. This will be an enhancement. Or actually, it's not an enhancement. This is just a task. It's not an enhancement. This is an actual task that needs to be done. And I think, like, unless anyone disagrees, I think that that's an important note for the V1 milestone. Okay, cool. Well, that was good. Thanks, Florian. Do. Okay. Great. Let's put that one at the top of the agenda, and I'll. Oops. Oh boy. Come on, Google Docs.
You created an issue where in the document or?
Yeah, I created an issue in right here in the Open GitHub
Open GitOps.
Open GitOps documents repo, and I'll just link it right there. Cool. I'll stop sharing my screen now, if I can. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's hard to find that little button thing, right? There we go.
Yeah, sometimes it's in the way and sometimes you can't find it. Okay, great. Okay, anything else that, or does anyone object to moving discussion about that and any items that folks think we should add to that issue? Cool. That is great. Okay. Next item. How do these two agenda items sound? Talking about the group iteration on simplifying the principal wording, which I think sounds like we're pretty much there. We just wanted to kind of confirm that on this call. That and the next version, and then wanted to look at the milestone for V 1.0. We just added one more item to that milestone, but I would like to propose that we set a date for that. So those are my two items. Ready to talk about the first one? Okay, cool. Then I guess I will share my screen one more time. This is the issue that every single person on this call has contributed to. I think I can check this box that say get more reviews from the principals committee and try to work asynchronously. We've it's no longer, that part is no longer in progress. We've done that. Yes. Excuse me. So where we're at with it right now is scrolling all the way down to the bottom real fast. We've got a number of approvals of getting this out for another, pre-release version. There's one question that I had, Moshe, for you. You said you're +1 for merging and iterating, but not 100% sure yet about tagging it until we're at a minimum solve consistency and grammatical issues. We add a minimum solve consistency and grammar issues. Is that something that you feel is a blocker for the V 0.2.0 pre-release?
Well, yes. So I think I don't think there's we've made progress, but we haven't ticked off the actual principles, those 4 items. So I'm not saying we need to solve the entire document and tackle all of the notes before we do a next tag. But I'm saying is that this principles section needs to be done and dusted, and either everybody agrees or there's consensus to not agree that those 4 things are done and dusted. And then we
Yeah.
can do a new tag, and then you work on the notes, and
Yeah.
then you work on the accessibility, and then you have a 1.0 when all of that is kind of reviewed.
That sounds right to me. Sorry, let me open the participants tab to make sure I can see any hands. Okay, cool. That sounds right to me. Are you saying that you feel like there is a consistency and grammar issue with these 4 headers? And if so, what is it? Because I hadn't heard that before.
Well, intentional changes only through versioning. To me, that should be is only through versioning. Or intentional change. We've changed the tone. We go is, and now it's changes. Like, it should be intentional change is only through versioning. That's more consistent.
Declarations on.
And then again, declarations of so this word declarations bugs me. It really bugs me because it's not something we've defined anywhere else. We're assuming when we say desired system state is declarative, we're saying that is now constitutes a declaration. But while we're doing that, just say desired state is versioned and immutable. And then again with system state, desired system state is declarative. We're using in some places desired state, in some places desired system state. We must pick one or the other and use it consistently. So in my opinion, you don't need to add the system in there. You can say desired state is declarative, and a system managed by GitOps, and we can define what a system is. But by adding it in there, we putting in a word in there and then creating consistency issue.
I cannot raise my hand while I'm presenting my screen, I guess. Yeah, I don't know why it doesn't let me do that. Anyway, so I guess Jesse's first, then I will raise my hand after.
I raised my hand for you. You can go ahead of me.
Oh, thanks.
And then I'll go after you.
Okay, sounds fair. I think that's an interesting point, Moshe. I just want to give an alternative point of view that one of the reasons we went through this again is that each of these principles we agreed essentially 1 or 2 sentence principle, the paragraph or whatever principle is accurate and everyone feels comfortable with it, at least thus far.
I'm in agreement. I think the text below is accurate, and I think those are consistent, but not the title.
Understood. I was sorry, I wasn't quite finished with that. Is what I meant, that was kind of a setup. I'm somebody who takes 3 paragraphs to set up for like a 1 sentence. So forgive my rhetorical style there, but basically my understanding of why we went back to these is because these headers for each of these just seemed not very memorable, not very snappy, and kind of repetitive, unnecessarily repetitive. So what I think we tried to do was ensure that one built on the other, so we didn't have to repeat the same words over and over and over again. Because otherwise we could say desired state in every single one of these. We could say versioned and immutable in every single one of these. But I think since they are numbered and progressive, the idea was that they would build one to the next. That doesn't necessarily mean that I'm saying this is exactly perfect. So far through talking with all of you, and this seemed to be the closest that we've gotten so far. I know that Christian and I had kind of like a like a 1 hour spitballing of how we could change the wording for number 4, but decided to leave that until for the next call because we didn't want to hold up this PR and just like debate it infinitely. That it seemed more important to get something out there where people feel that they can actually remember these and understand what they mean, the spirit of what they mean. That's spelled out in detail in this in the principle itself. But that's all I wanted to say about the why, and I just want to kind of leave you, Motion, the rest of you with that thought while we look over this and think about how we feel about what they say and what it means. I think Jesse was next, and then Mosh.
Yeah, I was just going to agree with Mosh. I think I won't speak for him. I bet I know why his hand's up. I don't think the question is why we need the shorter headers. It's just that they are not consistent, which I agree with. And I think even like, you know, Christian and a couple of other people, we've been talking about 4, and 4 feels clunky and weird. I had the thing about versioning as a verb. I know I was voted down. It's okay. Not a hill I'm going to die on. But I do agree having a little bit more consistency in those is really important because we do want them to pop, and we don't want sort of cognitive dissonance to fight against that. So I would be, I am totally good with merging this PR so that we can iterate. I'm also okay with not tagging until we resolve, you know, some of that consistency.
Okay, cool. I think Mosh next, then Florian.
Yeah, so, Scott, 100. I agree with you that we need to make these things pop, but I think that it's premature to do that now. I think now we need to distill it down to its correct form, into the correct and consistent form, and then once that's distilled down into a clean format, then we can circle back and say, how do we make this pop? And at that stage, I'd say probably none of us are qualified to do that. And there you probably want to bring in a branding person to have a look at this and get the marketing and branding people to kind of look at this from a non-technical perspective and see how you put that slant on it and make marketing or marketability a requirement for the 1.0. But I think we should make it consistent and clean before then. Yeah, just my 2 cents.
Okay, and before going to Florian real fast, just a point of clarification on what you said. Are you then saying you don't think we should have additional pre-releases before 1.0?
No, I am, but I'm saying that each pre-release needs to finish something. So pre-release, the next one should finish principles. The next one should finish notes. The next one should handle accessibility. The next one can handle marketing. Like you don't release something in an incomplete state. We don't have to make sure everything is there, but whatever we do, we must complete it before we move on. And say this item is now closed until we want to do a patch on that because there's something fundamentally buggy about it.
Okay, got your point of view. Okay, Florian?
Yeah, I'm not in the complete discussion till now, but I like the idea of these principles built on top of each other. So not being this 4 mantras, but the 2 referring to the 1 and so on. So desired system state is declarative, and then declarations are versioned. So there's a kind of a story behind. So they are related to each other. They can't. So the 4 can't be if 1, 2, 3 aren't fulfilled. Something like that. So you can't do only one of the principles, but you have to adapt all of them. So I like the connection between them, and probably this can be enhanced even more if one or some of you agree.
Oh, cool. Thanks, Florian. I see some Jesse's thumbs up. and Christian is next.
Yeah. So yeah. So Jesse, exactly, like four is really hard. I actually liked it to where because of what Florian said, that we originally had like kind of a yes, we really mean it, because then it referenced like 1, 2, and 3. It's like the only way to operate a system is to do 1, 2, and 3, right? So it brings that back to the loop. That was my first point. I think again, 4 is hard, but are we what are we discussing here specifically? Are we discussing whether or not we should tag this merge, or well, what's the actual, what are we trying to get to? What's our endpoint? Because I think if it's like, yeah, let's merge this but not tag it, I think I'm in agreement with that. If that's what's being proposed. Or like, well, what I guess my question now is out, and then I'll yield my time, is what is the what are we arguing here about? Like, and when I mean arguing, like discussing, right? Like what's the point of contention, I guess?
I can just summarize what I've heard and tell me if anyone disagrees. What I heard is a contention from Moshe that several things. One is that there's inconsistent grammar in the last principle. Each of these say something is something, or these things are something, right? This one does not do that. that could be fixed. That contention could be fixed in one of several ways. The most easy one, just throwing the word is in there, or are in there, whatever. Intentional change is, or changes are, right? That's one contention. Second, and Moshe, I'll let you go if you want to clarify this, but I'd rather not kick off another discussion topic until after Florian has his turn. And then the second thing I heard was that Moshe had potentially an issue with number 2 in the word declarations, in that, do we want to repeat the fact that it's desired state rather than declarations? Again, I had said my point of view was that the number 1 kind of clarifies that, number 2 builds upon that, and I think that was Florian's point. But that was what had been brought up. The third was that, what was it, system state? There was a concern that maybe we shouldn't say system state, we should just say desired state.
Oh, no. So I'm saying, yeah, just desired state, or keep it consistent.
Right, something like that, right? That was the third contention. And I think the fourth contention was just that no one's extraordinarily happy with the wording of number 4. It's fairly accurate, but is it catchy? We don't really know. There were other opinions thrown out, but I think those are the contentions. Did I miss any, Moshe, or anyone else on the call?
And the tagging contention is not like, I don't care for the tag or not. I care for our definition of done. So if we tag and then we say we're not done with these 4 things, we're coming back to them, I'm fine with that as well. It just, to me, tagging implies that we've done something and we're releasing it, and where I don't think it's at a midpoint. It's at a midpoint. It's not at a final iteration of what it was before. That's my objection with tagging, and the other is like inconsistencies that we can.
Okay, I can say for one, since I'm the one that put the agenda item on, saying like, I'd like to get this merged. The reason that I did that, and let's just address the last first, right, real fast, because I see Florian put his hand down, so I don't want to overrun you, Florian, if you had something that you wanted to say before this.
I just forgot to lower it, but I have another point, but please, after you.
Okay, fair enough. The fact that we have, let's see, in terms of actually iterating, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 looks goods, and this was I'm counting myself on this one because this was not my PR per se. I'm just the one that opened it. This actually came out of our meeting. I did not add my own spin on it or anything like that, right? So it just means I can't do an official approval because GitHub doesn't let you, right? So I just made that as a comment. But apart from that, we have people saying, "Hey, let's roll with this and improve and iterate and improve because it's a vast improvement to what we had." What I'm hearing now is uh, that Moshe, you're up for merging and iterating, but not sure about tagging. And I think that's calling into question other people thinking, well, do I approve of this, right? I just want to be clear on one thing that we've decided that we're following Simver as a versioning specification. We are in pre-release right now. We're not, we have not released a version that's a full version yet. The goal of doing this, from my point of view, of tagging it, would be so that we can reference it elsewhere. Right now, we're referencing the older version that repeats all of those things. So the website is pointing to v 0.1.0 of this, and that's where we're at. So if we want to iterate further, my vote would be to let's just keep doing it on this PR. There's no real value in merging and then going ahead if we don't want to tag it. And here's the other reason. Because when we do this, we're actually similar to the Simver spec itself. We're actually putting the version number in the header of the document. And I don't think we should merge this in that case. That also begs the question, what should we do in between releases when we merge? There, perhaps just remove the version or say, kind of floating or something like that. In any case, that's all I have to say for that one, except that I do think that it may be worth. Basically, I just want to give my opinion is that I think number 2 builds on number 1, and I think that's great. I think desired system state is great for us because we're not trying to use. I mean, these terms are. We don't want to pretend that these terms are terminologies that we came up with. These are inside of. If you look in the Kubernetes controller runtime documentation for core Kubernetes components, and for Kubernetes architecture. I know this isn't all about Kubernetes, but we're borrowing from some of that language. Desired state, actual state, and observed state, these are terms that are used, and they have specific meanings. We are using those meanings. So I think the reason that we put system in there was to be clear that because we're talking about GitOps, we are talking not just about one Kubernetes API object. We're talking about a system or a subsystem or some portion of a system that's managed through the GitOps process, whether it's in Kubernetes or not. So I just wanted to address my point of view about that. And also, I do think that as you read these, you want to think about them from a colloquial point of view, at least the headers, and that they should build upon each other and make it very clear what the hell we're talking about in quote unquote layman's terms. But that's my point of view. I will skip or pass on to the next person. I believe it's Florian, then Daniel, then Moshe, then Jesse.
Okay, 2 things. First, what will happen with these pre-release versions? So is it important to have multiple iterations? And the second one, a thought to the 4th principle. Aren't all changes intentional? So at least if you talk about. So could it be simplified to only changes are done through versioning, something like that? Next, please.
Yeah, before we move on from that and to the next person, I feel like that's a question that can be answered. We're proposing changing from the principle of operations through declaration to intentional changes only through versioning, and that came out of some heated discussion, but then so did the rest of these that are now being questioned again. So there is no absolute final decision about this. There's only iterative decisions based on meetings and pull requests. I heard from the last from many people on the last several calls that thought perhaps we shouldn't continue a weekly cadence to this meeting, and that we could perhaps work asynchronously instead. And I guess that's a separate conversation, but we've tried to do that. I just wanted to note that anyway, to be clear that's what that proposal is changing, if you can see that. I hope that helps answer that question, Florian. Oh, and then the question about versioning, real fast. There's no specific reason to do this. We just have, there's no specific functional, machine readable or anything like that reason to do this. We've just tagged this so that we can show that progress is being made. And also the website itself, this is the only place I know that's really using it. The website itself specifies the version of the principles that it's pointing to. So we are still pointing to these old ones that we want to change.
Okay, understood. The suggestion to the fourth was just as you said that no one is really happy with this phrase. So yeah, but please the next one.
Okay, got it. Thanks. Okay, so it was, I'm sorry. Then it was Daniel, then Moshe, then Jesse.
So mine's more of a question. I guess the question is the intent to have these so that they are able to stand alone. I understand that we're trying to have them build on each other, but is there any desire to have them essentially be self-contained? So the good thing about the ones that are start with the principle of is that you can more or less say them out of order and they're intelligible. These, I feel like my problem with 2 is that it works in tandem with 1, but it is more difficult by itself, because if you just look at it by itself, it says declarations. Declaration of what? You only know if you've read the previous one. So it's a question of, do we want them to be read serially together as a collective unit, or do we want them to be more self-contained? So that's mostly a question here, not a opinion.
Jesse, go.
Yeah, it looks like it's you. I mean, unless someone wants to quick respond to that,
I think so. My opinion is that all 4 of the principles equals GitOps, right? So the danger of them standing alone is that some people might say, hey, well, I'm doing number 2, so therefore I'm doing GitOps, and it's like actually it's all of them together makes GitOps, and I hope that's like what we're driving at. So I think that's why they sort of build on each other. So I don't think we've intentionally set out for them to be either or, but I do like that they kind of do relate to each other.
okay. I guess
so.
Moshe now. Yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of the version number and the website, so I think we need to kind of establish like what does a 1.0 mean and what does a 0.2 mean. And I think if we simplify it and say we have something that we are prepared to publicize, that's a 1.0, and everything before that is a draft and it's a pre-released. And then you can just link the website to master and say on the website, this is a pre-release and it's still a work in progress. Please join the committee to help and finalize these things. Because I think this distinction of pre-release is problematic, because we have things that clearly are better, but clearly are not done. And I think we need to be explicit about what it actually means. What does a 0.2 mean? And if we just rename it to pre-release, or draft, it makes it more explicit, and then we don't need to worry about this. So that's the one element. Just in terms of the word intentional, I think we do need to add a glossary for it. But Florian, just to kind of iterate, the intentional change being different to change or natural change. So the example we use is of an auto scaling set. You have an intentional change to change the auto scaling set parameters, and then there's an actual change that occurs to set the number of replicas. We don't want that number of replicas to be versioned and controlled. We want the intention behind it, and the intentional behavior to be under that scope. And then in terms of inferring meaning, I don't think inferring meaning is something you should be doing in a principle. A principle should stand alone, and they together they form a, like if you look at the Agile Manifesto, you have principles that say these are our 4 principles, or these are our 10 principles, and this is the manifesto. Each one of those items stands alone. Together they make up something more, but each one of those items still stands alone. And it doesn't infer meaning. So I should be able to read this without reading the descriptions. We agree that the descriptions build upon the title, but I don't think having a title build upon another title is the place for principles, because then it's not a principle, it's a paragraph, and then we should probably make it read like a paragraph. But yeah, my 2 cents.
Okay, I think Jesse is next.
Hey, looks like my camera's still not working, so you'll just have to deal with my silky smooth voice. So I'm gonna say a couple things quick. One, I just sort of off the cuff from what you just said, Moshe, I don't actually agree. I think we put intentional in there. This does keep coming up, so I think we need to add something to the glossary. I totally agree. I think intentional is meant to differentiate from operations on the system that are done imperatively. You know, jumping into a cluster and using kubectl versus making changes in declaration and versioning it. I think it's meant to differentiate there, not so much in your configuration says replica set 8, but at this moment in time, there's only 2 pods, right? That's not it. But I'm just going to throw that out there. I think we should discuss it more. The real thrust of why I raised my hand and stayed 12 minutes after, because I actually am skipping a work meeting right now to do that, is to say that I think one of the hangups here is not in us all agreeing that we should iterate, just merge this PR and iterate. Like, I think we all agreed on that. So Scott, I heard a little touch of frustration, which I do not blame you for, because you've kind of pulled all the threads together and you brought it, and we all said, yeah, let's merge it. Now we're saying, actually, we're not sure. I don't think anybody's not sure. I think what we're not sure of is on the tagging. And I believe that we're not sure of that because we don't have milestones listed out anywhere that say what 020, 030, 040 are, which Moshe just pointed out too. So I would like to put on the agenda for our next meeting, going through that. Like, what do we think 020 is? What do we think 030 is? And then we know what we're working toward, and it becomes less of the discussion as we iterate toward them. Because we know what 1.0 looks like. So if we need minor versions in between. Right, so minor, where are you going?
I'm really just opening up the Symverse spec while you're
talking. Okay. Well, that's fine too. Maybe we should look at that. But I think I would assume all of us are at least passingly familiar with the high order bit on Semver.
Yeah.
And we're all cool with having pre-release bits. I think the problem is we don't know what 040 is. So how will we know when we get there? It could be literally, I do not want to go and have 3 meetings on what these things are. I
No.
feel like in 20 minutes we should be able to bang out what's missing. Let's put milestones on them, and then we can go forward. So I just like would like to put that on the agenda for the next meeting, and then maybe we can just sort of punt on the tagging for now.
Personally, I agree with that, but just a point of order, we still have 15 minutes in this meeting. This didn't end at 3:30, it ends at 4.
No, I said I had a work meeting. I had to drop early.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Just
Yeah,
making
yeah, yeah. I was just saying how important it was for me to stick around. But
Thank you.
now I kind of have to go.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Jesse.
So if you want me to just put that in the doc, I can, or if you want to, because you're either way. But I think we should talk about that.
Yeah, I'm actually struggling a little bit to find the tab I was on where I was taking some notes. Oh, here we go. Yeah. Yeah, if you want to add notes to the doc, that's fine. I'll actually throw it in the doc, what I have right now in the doc, and see if this sounds correct to you. I think we've mentioned several issues. Oh my God. And by the way, thanks for noting that. I do not feel frustrated at anyone at all on this call.
No, I wasn't speaking for you. I heard
Good.
Frustration. I didn't mean to imply that you were frustrated with people. Sorry.
Yeah, just in case. I
Yep.
didn't think you meant that, but just in
Thank
case.
you.
Just to be clear, I am eager to do what you're saying, where I think we can bust some things out.
Yeah.
And hopefully, I know that you have to get rolling, but I would love to address these issues for the rest of the
Yeah, and just to be clear as well, so I'm pretty happy for people to be frustrated at me. I know they're often very justified in that. So I don't take any offense to it. Just saying.
Understood. Thank you.
I think, and just to be clear, like I think it's also, we iterate and reiterate. I don't know, is that a word? Like there is a point of like, oh my God, let's just merge something. So I think we can all have that frustration or that eagerness without it being personal. I think we're all doing a great job, but I think it will help to lay out some basic dot milestones on the road to 1.0, and that way, we'll just know. And I think most you kind of frame that well. Like it could be like, two is the catchy, snappier versions, and 3 is glossary, and 4 is more accessible language. And we'll just lay them out. It doesn't have to. We don't have to be super pedantic about it, but I think it will help.
Yeah.
All right. Now I have to split. Thank you all so much.
Bye, Jesse.
Catch you next time.
All right, catch ya.
Bye.
Okay, so Florian.
Yeah, I would like to follow up on, I think it was Daniel and Mosh's, regarding whether the principals should be able to stay alone or not. Daniel explained that all the 4 make GitOps. A single one is, cool stuff, but not very useful. Thinking about the reactive manifesto, as Mosh mentioned, the agile one. All of these reactive statements are fine and valid, but only all of them make a reactive system. Just my 5 cents.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Florian, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm trying to take notes as well. Okay. I have a quick question. Christian, since we've gone over this now, do we want to summarize what we had discussed for item 4?
Yeah, I mean, I might as well since we're here, right?
Yeah.
Meaning here as in like this is, you know, what we're discussing.
Yeah. Oops.
See if I can find that thread.
I have it. It's in our DM in Slack in CNCF.
Oh, there.
Oh, but also while we are here, we can actually address one of these things right now. I think I don't want this list to seem so overwhelming, like, oh, it's insurmountable. No, grammar is a very easy one. That's not a hard one. If the goal of that is just to make sure that we say, you know, something is or are something else, fine. That's fairly easy to do right now. For example, oh, come on, please help me get back to this. I'm dying here. Let me just close some of these things. Okay, there we go. We can just simply say intentional changes are only through versioning, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that we want that to say it exactly like that, and I think that's where the question about the conversation with Christian comes in. But this is just simply to address grammar. Okay, go ahead, Christian.
Yeah, and I think it maybe has to do with like the glossary, right? Like if we ever get to, like I mentioned that I wasn't a big fan of through versioning in terms of the principle, right? And I think that was what we discussed, right, Scott?
Yeah.
In terms of through versioning, and I think originally we had a system. What do we have here? I'm just looking through the.
Here we go. This is what it was.
Through the chat. It was
on the screen, the principle of operations through declaration.
There was since the by update. And I think originally, like even before then, we had the system is done by updating the desired state.
Yeah.
See here. I'm sorry if I'm scattered. I'm actually just reading through what we wrote because we literally had like an hour conversation, Scott.
Yep.
I think my contention mainly was just the idea of through versioning. Because it doesn't changing the version of something doesn't necessarily mean it's applied, right? And I think that was my my contention on it, right? So I think we all agree that the operations through, the whole thing that we say, right, is operations through pull requests. You mutate the declaration, and that's how you operate a system. I think we were all agreement with that. I was just having trouble finding a proper way of saying that, and I don't know if versioning is like, or through versioning. I don't know if that's a good way of saying I mutated something and I'm applying it. So I think that was like my big thing. I don't know. Again, just I guess like everyone else, I'm not happy with how number 4 is turning out.
Yeah.
I think Moshe had his hand up first, and then William. I'm not sure.
No, it was William.
Oh, it was William. Okay.
Yeah. William is next.
It's adding to what Christian is expressing there. The through versioning for me, I need to state that that's how it's happened. Okay. So that's I added there like 8 minutes ago, like actualization to declarations are version, trying to map that back to number 2, where we are saying like declarations, even when we don't have a definition of declaration, but trying to put a verb on it. So you added a verb as well. And the changes are only through versioning. Or so actualization, changes, or update. Do we have a favorite word there? Probably should ask that first.
Okay, so we need a definition of attentional. We need a definition of declarative.
Do we need
Like
a definition
actualization
or
Sorry.
differentiate between changes, updates, or actualizations?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Changes or actualizations or updates. Sorry, we have been using those words, and do we want them to be interchangeable or not? Just an open question.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if we do or don't. That's why I've always used mutating, just because. Yeah, I have the same trouble as you do, William. I don't know if I want to use these words interchangeably, right? Like update, change. Maybe we're getting too technical with it. I don't know. I don't know if we need to define what a change is, because that just, I don't know, that sounds like we're getting like we're like picking too many nits. I do want to think about it, but I don't know. We may be taking too many nits. That's why I've always used the word mutating, right? Like you mutate the declaration. Anytime I speak with someone, I say you mutate the declaration, because that's open-ended enough to where at least they'll ask questions and then you can, answer around it. I just realized that Florian's at the Jedi Temple. Sorry. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I think it's worth discussing, but I don't know. I have trouble with it as well. So I don't have a good answer.
Okay, because we're counting down, let's try to keep these to 1 minute responses now. We only have 3.5 minutes left. We have 3 minutes left. Moshe, then Florian.
I know I'm poking the bear here, but why don't we just remove 4 and really just say and follow from the Agile Manifesto that says, while there's value on the things on the left, we value the things on the right more, or in reverse, and say the only way in which you practice GitOps is by the application of all of these principles and not in isolation. And we actually say what we mean, and we take this 4th contentious principle out. Yeah, I know it's poking the bear, but I maybe we should relook at it.
Okay. Florian?
Yeah, fits perfectly. I just thought about not talking about changing or mutating or adjusting or whatever. What is adjusted? So through versioning, yes, but we would try, or we'd like to adjust the desired state. So when applying 1, and 2, then you have to make the changes to the desired state, and this is through versioning. And then I'm fully with Mosh. 4 is obvious and redundant.
Got it. Yeah, I agree. It is a good topic for next time. I agree with Christian that I also do not hate it. We've said over and over that we saw point 4 as more of a punctuation than adding something new. The only thing that I think in this version that we're recommending adding new is that we're making it clear that this is not just one of many concepts that you can mix together and be doing GitOps. It should be the only way that a system is interacted with intentionally. So whether we say it exactly like that or something else, or whether we don't say that at all, but we just give that as an introduction, we discussed that from the very beginning. So interestingly, I just want to note that when Dan reached out to Brian Grant for feedback, that was one of his pieces of feedback, is that do away with number 4. So yeah, he's a pretty smart guy as well. So I wouldn't, I don't think we've ever discounted that, but I think a number of people in this group really liked the emphasis, the emphasis, right? So it is a good question. Do we really need it? Maybe we should just really think about this now. I'll make a poll. Or actually, I'll move this as we had before. Move this to a discussion item, right? And we can note that Moshe's concerns, what other people on this call have said. I'll save the chat. What Brian had said, and do that piece asynchronously. So I agree with you. I don't think this is ready to merge just yet. But I think we've gotten closer to something. Thank you all. Can we try to be a little, maybe if you don't want to meet every week, at some point perhaps we can Slack attack it and continue the involvement on discussion and the GitHub PRs like we have. It's been a lot better.
Yeah, no, I think, if we want to cut down to every other week or something.
Yeah. William, I would love to set up in fact, I think I would love to, I think William, you're underscoring Moshe had said initially that, and which I think Jesse said before he left, that it would be nice to create a milestone. And if our milestone for V 0.2.0 is to resolve the headers for each of the principles, then how about we make the milestone now, we'll do it, and we'll set a target date. It doesn't mean that that date can't be changed. But I would say if we actually care about this, we could do this asynchronously within a week. I don't think we need to let this drag on for months or anything. I see a thumbs up from Moshe, and I love that too. Okay, one more burning. Okay, I see more thumbs up. Great, cool. All right. So that'll be my action item, is I'll make the milestone and I'll put it in Slack. And then please let me know if I've done it in a way that any of you don't like. And I think Daniel, it looks like you have a burning.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, is the best method to communicate on this either GitHub discussions, or Slack? Like what's the preferred, or all the above?
Yes.
Okay.
I think the discussions is good, because I don't think everyone is on Slack. I think that has a broader, so it depends how broad you want the discussion to be.
Yeah, in short, the rule of thumb is discussions are great for discussions. But we can also discuss on pull requests, we can discuss on issues, but discussions are good because they give the advantage of being able to mark something as an answer at some point. So when other community members come in, they can do it. But we can start with issues. We can create issues from discussions, and we can now create issues out of discussions. So I think that's a really good place to start, either an issue or discussion. The nice thing about that is it gets you around feeling like you've wasted your time on a pull request. You know what I mean? Like, people sometimes feel burned out when they put a lot of effort into a pull request, but then get feedback from people saying, oh, I just don't think that's a good idea at all. And so they're recommended to use discussions for those kinds of things, just so that they save their own spirit, so that they keep feeling good. But besides that, it doesn't really matter. And then Slack is just for real time when we can, but also we're trying to keep in mind that we're trying to be globally inclusive, and so not all people are on at all times. So that's why we try to make sure that if there is anything in Slack, whatever it is that's meaningful, if we want it to persist, we need to make sure that that's put somewhere that can really be asynchronous, because Slack will just erase at some point. That's my impression. I think that's what we said at the very beginning, when we first got together as a group, but I just, my memory can be flawed sometimes. But Okay, we're 3 minutes over. That's not too bad given where we came to. So, this was actually really productive, I think. And it's really nice talking with you all. I'm going to do my action item, and I'll see you on Slack and GitHub. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Uh,